Welcome in. This is The Metricality, where I don't argue talent. I study execution. This is Season 2, Episode 7. Arkansas is on a 4-game losing streak. And yes, context matters. They just came off a loss to South Carolina, an elite team. That part isn't shocking. But the way the game unfolded matters more than the opponent. Because Arkansas didn't start with their ideal lineup. And because of that, the game snapped earlier than it needed to. This wasn't a game Arkansas was likely to win, but it was a game that could have stayed closer for longer and more competitive with better structural alignment. And that's the through line of this episode. Because next up is Tennessee, a top 20 team. And Tennessee doesn't beat Arkansas with shooting. They beat Arkansas by forcing pace before Arkansas is organized. So today, we're taking a hard look, a real one, not just at the Tennessee matchup, but at Arkansas itself. We're going to talk about what the South Carolina game actually tells us, the ideal starting five and why timing matters more than talent, the win conditions against Tennessee, the margin bands this game lives in, and what Arkansas must clean up to be competitive in the SEC, not just in one game, but over the long haul. This isn't about panic. It isn't about effort. And it's not about rewriting expectations. It's about execution, sequencing, and control. Because in this league, games don't drift, they snap. And Arkansas is running out of room for early snaps. Let's get into it. Before we talk SEC, we have to start with South Carolina. Not because the loss was shocking, but because it was revealing. South Carolina is elite, but the real issue was how quickly the game snapped once Arkansas started misaligned. This game had a margin problem. With the wrong starting lineup, Arkansas had almost no room for error. And against a team like South Carolina, that window closes fast. That's a lesson. So let's talk about what Arkansas actually did to start the South Carolina game. They didn't go with the normal 5. They made one adjustment. Lawrence started instead of Mayberry. The opening lineup was Jones, Lawrence, Robinson, Clarkson, and Dees. And that change mattered. It added length, it added defensive versatility, and even on a tough shooting night, Lawrence still impacted the game. 6 rebounds, 2 steals, real contributions that don't show up in the shooting line. But this wasn't a shooting problem, it was a structure problem. Because while that lineup was an improvement, it still didn't give Arkansas enough ways to settle early possessions. There wasn't a second stabilizer. There wasn't a true backline presence to absorb pressure and clean up mistakes when things break down. South Carolina didn't beat Arkansas by playing fast. They beat Arkansas by never letting Arkansas get organized, using physical disruption to shorten possessions before structure could form. Spacing never fully settled. Decisions were rushed before Arkansas could choose them, and once that happens against an elite team, the margin disappears quickly. That's where the ideal 5 comes in. The ideal 5 for the game against South Carolina at home was Jones, Dees, Rodriguez, Lawrence, and Ware. And that's not about an upside, it's about durability. With the starting lineup Arkansas chose, the margin for error was extremely small. They didn't need 4 of 6 win conditions. They needed 5 of 6 win conditions just to keep the game inside the competitive band. They didn't get there. And I want to point something out. It's important to say this. There were real individual positives. Jada Bates had a career night in the South Carolina game. Her confidence showed up. She attacked with purpose. She finished plays. That wasn't the issue. And that's actually the point. Even with a career performance from Jada, great job Jada, Arkansas still never found collective organization. That tells us this wasn't about effort or one player missing shots. It was about how thin the margin becomes when structure breaks, especially against an elite team. So let's lay out the win conditions because this is where the game actually broke. Win condition 1, ball security. Arkansas needed a total turnovers at 12 or fewer, with live ball turnovers capped at 8. Now, ideally, if they wanted a true upset, they needed to get South Carolina to have 2 more turnovers than them. That would have been very, very hard against South Carolina, very unlikely. But to keep it in the competitive band, Arkansas just needed to keep total turnovers at 12 or fewer, with live ball turnovers capped at 8. They missed this immediately. Turnovers stacked early, several of them live ball, and South Carolina turned those straight into points. Once they miss this early, the upset path is gone, and the chances of staying in the competitive band are almost gone. Win condition 2, early organization. Arkansas needed to survive the opening segment with clean possession, spacing set, actions completed, no rushed reads. That didn't happen. South Carolina disrupted entry points and shortened possessions before Arkansas could ever settle. Miss this like they did, and the margin starts shrinking before the game even has shape. Win condition 3, paint containment. Arkansas needed to keep South Carolina from getting comfortable at the rim. Force finishes through bodies, not open lanes. They missed this. Without a true backline anchor early, help came too soon, rotation stretched, and South Carolina established interior control. Once they miss this, the margin grows without even hot shooting. Win condition 4, rebounding control. Arkansas needed to limit second chance opportunities to stay alive in the math. They didn't. Extra possessions extended runs and erased only any chance to reset the game state. Once they miss this, the margin moves from recoverable to runaway. Condition 5, shooting gravity. Arkansas didn't need a great shooting night. They needed one perimeter threat to bend coverage. That never materialized. Even with Lawrence providing spacing value, South Carolina never had to adjust their help rules. Miss this, and there's no pressure release, no margin relief. Win condition 6, late game position. Arkansas needed to be within 4 to 6 entering the final stretch for variance to matter. That window never existed. The margin was gone well before the fourth quarter. I think it was the middle of the first. Once they miss this, the outcome is locked. Margin reality with this lineup that Arkansas chose to start. They needed to hit 5 of 6 to stay competitive. Now, they most likely still would have lost, but they would have lost by single digits, much better than 35. If they would have hit 4 of 6, they would have lost, but it would have been in the 8 to 14 range, half of what they lost by. Hit 3 or fewer, and it's a snap zone. 20-point loss or greater. Arkansas didn't hit any, so they're in the snap zone. Once that happened, the final score wasn't surprising. It was inevitable. Arkansas lost by 35. This wasn't about effort. It was about choosing a lineup that required near-perfect execution and then missing the earliest levers. And that's why this loss matters going forward, because it shows just how thin the margin is when alignment isn't exact. SEC competitiveness. What Arkansas has to fix. Arkansas has to create separation. Everything starts here for Arkansas. They struggle so much with creating separation. They struggle to create clean separation, and it shows up everywhere. 5-second violations on inbounds, 10-second backcourt violations, delayed entries into offense. This isn't a guard-only issue, it's an off-ball problem. Players aren't selling cuts, they're not changing pace, They aren't creating angles before the catch. SEC defenses don't allow static spacing. If you don't create separation before the ball arrives, the possession is already compromised. They have to work on creating separation. That is a must. Number 2, drives. On drives, Arkansas too often drives with bad posture. They let the defender stay in their chest, reads the defense after contact instead of before. To get in front of a defender on a drive, your shoulder and hips have to be lower than theirs. That's non-negotiable. And so many times I see Arkansas hesitate, and it's like this just doesn't come into their mind, or they're out of practice. But they need to work on this. Get lower. Get your shoulder and hips lower. They have to work on that. And if you get lower, then you'll be able to get in front of them. You also have to enter the drive with a pre-planned counter. I rarely see that from Arkansas, and across the board in college teams, I don't see that a lot. That needs to happen. You just need one counter, not 5, one. A spin, an inside out, a retreat dribble. You need one counter so that if you're driving to shoot it and help side comes up, you have something planned where you can still shoot. And you have to read the defender's feet, not just their hands. Now here's the important distinction. I always teach patience on drives. I just coach youth, so it's a difference. You read the defense, you don't rush. Arkansas actually has the opposite problem. They stall too long. They hesitate enough to give the advantage back to the defense. One of the biggest issues on films is this. Arkansas is often hesitant to drive even when the defender is still moving. If a defender is sliding, late, or has a foot in the air, that's the advantage. That's an illegal block if the offensive player commits to the lane correctly. They need to work on this. But instead of punishing that moment, Arkansas slows down, pulls up, or drifts into traffic, turning a legal advantage into a neutral or losing play. When defenders do beat them to the spot, they invite charge calls, they stop their dribble in congestion, or they force late bailout passes. But the bigger issue is this. Arkansas isn't going when they're allowed to go. SEC defenders are trained to absorb contact and sell position. If you hesitate, they win the whistle. Without a second move already loaded, and without confidence attacking a moving defender, the drive is over before it begins. This is why drives have to be trained, not improvised. I tell my players all the time there are 5 non-negotiables on every drive. A good controlled dribble. A moment to read the defense. Not a pause, just a moment. A quick second to read the defense. You can't hesitate. Don't underestimate the straight line. If it is open, it's open. Get in front of the defender by lowering your shoulder and hips. And 5th is have a counter in your head before you start. I even ask them in practice, what's your counter? Before they start the drive. It sounds simple, even silly, but that's how the habit gets built. Because in this league, hesitation isn't caution, it's the mistake. The third thing Arkansas needs to work on is passing discipline, especially in the paint. This one is not subjective in any way. The data is very loud here. Arkansas's highest impact turnovers aren't random. They cluster in 3 places. Chest passes in the paint, jumping to pass, late kickouts after a drive stalls. Those aren't just turnovers, they're live ball turnovers in the most dangerous zones. Against SEC length, those decisions have a much higher probability of being deflected, turned into runouts, converted into immediate points the other way. That's why the model flags them as high leverage mistakes, not because of the turnover itself, but because of what follows. When Arkansas turns it over this way, transition defense isn't set. Help side is already collapsed. Rim protection is late or non-existent. That's how margin swings fast. So this isn't just about passing better, it's about passing correctly for the situation. So let's talk about the types of passes and when to use them. Because there might be some fans listening that don't know this. And Arkansas probably should review this since it's been a repeat issue. Chest passes. Chest passes are fine on the perimeter, fine and transition with space. Not acceptable in traffic. In the paint, chest passes are slow, predictable, and they're right at the defender's hand. They also have far more airtime than a bounce pass, which gives SEC length time to react. Bounce pass. That is usually the best option in tight space. The best pass in the paint almost all the time. There are exceptions, but that's the rule. Ideal for pocket passes and dump-offs, they protect the ball against length. Overhead passes. Useful against pressure only when you're stationary and balanced. Dangerous when thrown late or off 1 foot. Jump passes. And I've seen Arkansas a couple times do a jump chest pass in the paint. And I couldn't believe my eyes. I will be honest, I couldn't believe my eyes that I saw that. And I don't remember if they were taken out of the game immediately and put on the bench. I hope they were, just to give them a quick reminder, not as a punishment, but just to give them a quick reminder of game mistakes not to make, and as a learning opportunity. They might have just been flustered, and that happens to the best of us. So get a moment, breathe, remind yourself of what you need to do and get back out there. But jump passes, almost always a mistake, almost always, unless the receiver is already set and uncovered. Now, the reason why these are always almost a mistake is because once you're in the air, you cannot return to your feet with the ball. You can't. You have to get rid of it at that point. Your timing has to be perfect. If you're off by 1/4 of a second, it's a turnover. It is a high-risk move. In the paint, they eliminate your ability to pivot, retreat, or protect the ball. So once you're doing a jump pass, you're already committed to that pass, and you have to give it to them. And here's the key rule Arkansas has to live by. If the drive stalls, the pass is already too late. Once penetration stops, help has arrived. Passing lanes have shrunk. Any kickout becomes a gamble. That's where turnovers explode. The rule-based fix for this, and this is data-backed, Arkansas needs clear non-negotiable rules. No chest passes in traffic. I mean, this should be a rule for most basketball players. No jump passes unless the receiver is already set. And I would even go so far as to say no jump passes at all. Because the only time I've seen them, it's been a turnover that I can remember. I can't think of one single completed successful jump pass. I'm sure there have been, but they are too high of a turnover risk. 1 foot on the floor reads only in the paint. If you don't see it immediately, pull it out. These aren't conservative rules. They're margin protection rules. Because data says when Arkansas breaks them, the game doesn't drift, it accelerates against them. The fourth thing Arkansas needs to work on is defensive posture and stance. This one shows up on film immediately. Jones, Clarkson, Robinson, they will be bent over at the waist, sitting back on their heels, playing with hips already open toward the paint. That last one is, I saw Clarkson do that in this last game. But across the board, the majority of them need to work on posture and not sitting back on their heels. Now, that's not true for every player. There are some players with better posture. Her posture has gotten better. She does stay on the balls of her feet most of the time. But across the board, generally, Arkansas has a major posture problem. When your hips and feet are open to the paint, like I saw in this last game, Clarkson did this, you give up straight line drives, help arrives late instead of early, closeouts turn into flybys instead of contests. That's the other thing. Arkansas has to stop jumping on late closeouts. That never works. In an SEC team, against SEC teams, you're not going to distract good shooters into missing a shot. I have an equation for it. It's very low that it works even for distractions. It's even lower that you're actually going to get a block by a flyby jump. And the chance of a foul is much higher. SEC guards live off that type of angle. You're not looking to beat great defense. They're not looking to beat great defense. They're waiting for defenders to open the door. And once you're in the air, when you jump, they can just blow right past you. Defensive posture isn't about effort. It's about stance, balance, and discipline. If your weight is on your heels and your hips are open, you're already beat even before the first dribble. And against SEC guards, that's all they need. And if we go back to the Alabama game, Jones is a very great player. I love her. I love the energy and effort she brings. She is always putting in effort in defense. But if we go back to the Alabama game, there is an instance in the first quarter where we call it the ankle breaker. She falls backwards. She's burned on a drive. And good posture would have prevented that. She is on the weight of her heels and her body cannot react in time. If she would have been on the balls of her feet, much better result. And I don't know why the trainers don't work on this. This is simple. I know it takes a while for habit to form, but this should be corrected. I don't understand why this isn't a bigger issue. If you want to see the difference between a team like South Carolina, Texas, and Arkansas, look at their posture. See how they stand on defense. They're not bent over at the waist. Look at where the weight is on their feet. That makes all the difference. You can put all the effort into stopping a drive you want, but if you're on your heels, you're not going to be able to contain it like you would if you're on the balls of your feet. All right, the next one. Help side discipline. And this is a big one. Arkansas overhelps from the wrong places. So many times, they just need to work on their ball side and help side. Ball side defenders helping on drives. Ball side should never help stop a drive because it just invites a quick pass to their man for an easy score. Help side defenders will be ball watching. Robinson, so many times I see her with her back toward the person she's guarding on help side. This is not acceptable. Defenders cannot turn their backs to their assignments. Late, desperate closeouts that arrive late. The damage is already done. We cannot do this. My model backs this up. Arkansas gives up too many paint touches off unnecessary help, too many kick-out threes after late rotations. This isn't about effort. It's about structure. It's about rules. Arkansas needs a true nailed defender who shows early and recovers, not someone lunging late. I don't see a true nail defender when they play defense. They need that. They need clear discipline. Help comes from help side, not ball side. better communication on stunt and recover, not full commits. And I have seen them improve somewhat defensively. At the very beginning, they weren't even switching on screens or anything on defense. They are switching, so they are doing better, but they cannot get better without posture, without fixing ball side and help side, and without fixing the late rotations. That is key to them. They need to do this. Early possession economy is another issue for Arkansas. Arkansas burns too many possessions in the first 8 to 10 seconds. It shows up as bad entry passes, rushed reversals, over dribbling before any advantage is created. SEC teams punish empty early possessions because they cascade. Long rebounds, transition opportunities, foul pressure before the defense is set. Clean first actions matter more than late creativity. If the possession starts broken, it rarely ends well. 7 is defensive rebounding shape. Even when Arkansas rebounds well, their shape is often poor. You see guards leaking out early, bigs rebounding outside their area, disorganized outlet spacing that leads to slow outlets, soft pressure, delayed offensive initiation. My model shows Arkansas's pace spikes after broken rebounds, not planned pushes. That's not tempo, that's recovery. And recovery basketball is how teams lose control of games. Now, the 8th thing is emotional sequencing. This one is subtle, but it's real. After a turnover, after a missed layup, or a bad whistle, Arkansas too often responds with a forced drive or rushed 3. SEC teams recognize this immediately and press harder. The data shows Arkansas's worst stretches come in clusters, not isolations. They don't need more toughness. They need built-in reset possessions. One clean action, one controlled trip. Something that stops the spiral before it starts. So when you put all of this together, the takeaway isn't that Arkansas is broken. It's that the margin in the SEC are unforgiving. The margins are so unforgiving in the SEC. Small habits become big problems, and structural mistakes don't wait until the fourth quarter to show up. Which brings us to Tennessee. Because Tennessee doesn't need Arkansas to play poorly. They just need Arkansas to be slightly disorganized. This matchup is about whether Arkansas can apply the fixes we just talked about quickly, consistently, and under pressure. So let's shift from what Arkansas has to clean up to what Tennessee will test. Because this game will tell us a lot about whether Arkansas is learning or whether the same margin problems are about to show up again. Let's get into the Tennessee preview. Tennessee game style versus Arkansas game plan. Tennessee is not a finesse team. They are a pressure and pace team. They want to speed the game up before possessions are organized, turn early chaos into advantage, force Arkansas to play fast without control. Tennessee doesn't need elite shooting to win. They win by attacking before help is set, creating early advantages, forcing Arkansas into rush decisions. This is important. Tennessee doesn't break you with physical disruption the way South Carolina does. They break you by accelerating the game, pushing tempo before Arkansas is ready to defend it. That's why this matchup is dangerous. What Arkansas cannot do. Arkansas cannot match Tennessee's early pace. They can't play free flow offense or rely on reaction basketball. If Arkansas tries to run with Tennessee, if they try to match that early pace, this game will snap quickly. This is not a chaos game for Arkansas. It's a control game. Arkansas needs control. The style Arkansas must play. Arkansas's best path in this game is controlled tempo, early organization, deliberate possessions. That doesn't mean slow, that means intentional. Arkansas needs clean first action, one advantage per possession, and disciplined spacing before attacking. On defense, that means building the wall early, forcing Tennessee to finish over bodies, taking away straight line drives. Arkansas cannot overhelp, they cannot chase, they have to absorb pressure without speeding up. They also have to defend the possession and not the ball. The core tension of this matchup. Tennessee wants to turn this into a race. Arkansas wants to turn this into a test of execution. If the game stays organized, Arkansas can stay inside the margin band. Variance has time to matter. If the game speeds up early, possessions shorten, mistakes cluster, and Tennessee takes control. That's the fulcrum of this matchup. This game will be decided in the first 10 minutes, not by who scores more, but by who controls the structure. And that leads directly into the starting lineup, win conditions, and margin bands, and which is where this game really gets decided. And the thing I will say I like about Tennessee is they change their starting lineup depending on what they need for that particular matchup. Arkansas needs to do that. And so the Arkansas's ideal five for this particular matchup in a away game at Tennessee is Talia Jones, Bonnie Dees, Maria Rodriguez, Jenna Lawrence, and Harmony Ware. That group gives Arkansas the best chance to survive Tennessee's disruption because it maximizes decision-making stability, paint protection without overhelp, rebounding shape, shooting gravity without sacrificing structure, fewer high-leverage turnover paths. It's not about upside or pace, it's about durability. The ability to absorb pressure, stay organized, and keep the game in the playable band. That's what Arkansas needs to do at the beginning. That's crucial. Arkansas's win conditions versus Tennessee. And the order here matters. With the ideal five on the floor, Arkansas still needs precision, not chaos. The path is narrow, not quite as narrow as South Carolina, but it's narrow. And it's also real. This is an upset path. If they do this, they can win, especially with the ideal five. Number one, ball security. This is a non-negotiable. This is always an issue with Arkansas lately. Ball security. They need to get a total of 12 turnovers or less. Live ball turnovers have to be 8 or less. If they miss this early, if they get too many turnovers too early, the game will snap fast. Tennessee converts mistakes into pace. Arkansas has to get 12 turnovers or less, 8 live ball turnovers or less. So that's why the ideal starting lineup is crucial. Number two, early organization. Clean entries. First action initiated with spacing set. No rushed reversals in the first 10 seconds. This is about surviving the opening push. If Arkansas never gets organized, nothing else matters. Third is pace control. The target band here is going to be 68 to 72 possessions. Not slow, not rushed, intentional. If pace drifts above this early, Tennessee is winning on their terms. Shooting gravity. One lever. We need one shooter again to hit 4 threes, or Jones and Lawrence to combine for 28 points. So we need one shooter to hit 4 threes, or Jones and Lawrence to combine for 28 points or more. Arkansas doesn't need volume shooting. They need coverage bending shooting. 5 is paint containment. Tennessee's rim efficiency held in the low to mid 50s. No straight line drives, help from help side only. This is where Rodriguez and Dees matter most. Again, Tennessee's rim efficiency needs to be held in the low to mid 50s. And Rodriguez is the best player, in my opinion, in defending the paint. So she is crucial here. Late game position. Within 3 to 4 at the 5-minute mark in the fourth quarter. If Arkansas is close late, variance finally has room to matter. If not, Tennessee will close calmly. All right, now let's talk margin bands with this lineup, the ideal 5. If Arkansas hits 5 to 6 win conditions, it'll be a toss-up. Single-digit game, Arkansas wins, Tennessee wins. It'll come down to the very end. If they hit 4 win conditions, Tennessee will win by about 6 to 12. Competitive but uphill. If they hit 3 or fewer, again, we're in the snap zone, which is about an average of 15 to 25. But that depends on if they're hitting 3, if they're hitting 2, or none. If they don't hit any, it's going to be more than 25. Pace accelerates, margin runs. So 3 or fewer, we're in the snap zone. Bottom line is this is not an upside game for Arkansas. It's a durability game. The ideal 5 widens the margin for error just enough to survive Tennessee's pressure, but only if Arkansas hits the early levers. Miss the first 2, the rest don't matter. That's the Tennessee game. Not a talent test, a structure test. Arkansas doesn't need to run faster. They need to play cleaner. If they protect the ball, get organized early, and control the paint, this stays inside the margin band. If they don't, it snaps, and it snaps early like it did in South Carolina. The fixes aren't theoretical. They're teachable, they're repeatable. And whether Arkansas is ready to apply them is what this stretch of SEC play is really about. I'll be back after the Tennessee game to break it all down. This is The Metricality, where I talk data, not vibes.